but I am very aware that when things are recorded, it sometimes brings an awareness into the meeting, which wouldn't be there otherwise. So let's just forget that that started. Yeah, so first session, it'd be great to just hear where you're at in terms of your interest for this next little bit. On the top of my screen, I've got Horst. Would you like to share something, Horst? Sorry, I can't hear you yet. It's still muted. I can unmute you though, I think. Oh no, I can't.
And I cannot be very exact, but I can listen and understand. And your impulse is very future, for the future, I think.
Thank you. I think we missed the first half of what you said because it was still on mute. Would you mind just sharing the beginning again?
I enjoy the movement, and your impulse is for the future. I think I'm teacher and made many experience with Bothmer, but now it's very open, very and very connected with the earth and with the development of mankind, I think. Very, very deep for me, what I see with you and this group. Everyone.
Cool, thank you very much. Awesome, thank you. Oh, sorry, you can't see me. Thank you very much for sharing. It's really nice to have you here. And if I remember rightly, you and Anita, you meet up in Basel. You connect together sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah, and because I know some of the work that she does with the movement in the groups. I think they've done it as a healing practice in different places, different towns, and moving together and feeling the space and seeing what happens. Are you involved in that as well with Anita?
I'm a very good friend of Anita, and I visit her very often and do mostly gymnastic with her. She came a little later, but now she's very strong.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Wonderful. Jan, you're next on my screen.
Yeah, I try to use some of the questions. In the last days, it was very hard to come to these questions again because I felt what we spoke some days ago about questions and the ability to develop something like a question which goes beyond my horizon now. Yeah, and normally our questions are just that we want to know something which we can anywhere pretty easy know or even know, and so that was very hard. And I had these 3 questions I sent you, and that's something like a key for me. That I think we can do the Bothmer gym, or I have the question how we can do the Bothmer gym in a way that we can connect to the movement, to the reality of movement, and these feelings, the impulses that we feel it, that it just through us. And the truth of the movement we always feel, and we can something like plug in to the energy, yeah. And so we are working how we can do it better, and it's great to do it together. I've started every morning. You just help us to do it together all over the world. It's a little bit more difficult for me. Then we are a circle and we can see each other. Then we can something like be connected directly. Yeah, I think you know it from your Bothmer gym lessons. And now it's over the earth. They are very, so it's very hard, but sometimes there comes something like a feeling. So there's something in between our humans and these ways of humanity, so bigger being connected. That's one question for me, how we can work this out and how we can make a step in the future, yeah, or come even from the future. What Casey, you told it that you have the question, what comes to me to the future? What's the question for me from the movement? Yeah, and this is for me as I made my studies altogether 5 years, but in the third and the fourth year, I had this impression by I don't know whether you know, you already know. I just looked at the people moving, I think in my second or third year at the Bothmer school, and I have 1 year at the Jugendseminar in Stuttgart. So it was more or less my third year of Bothmer gym. There I can't move myself, and I just had to look. It was in the summertime, yeah. And so I could see they were mostly just had a shirt and a short, and I could see the muscles and the anatomy, and I was working very much in anatomic patterns. I wanted to study medicine at this time. And so it was something like a game, like a play, like something like a music, which is through inside the body, yeah. And these truths, which I felt is really the truth of the movement, it's something like a bigger movement. It's something like a being, which is, afterwards I got the idea of these Greek gods, yeah. As they made their exercises, they had the impression of the gods who were incarnated in them. So they were bigger than just as individuals, but they got the half götter, yeah. So it was not just a man, but a god as well, half man, half god. And this feeling, this something like it was this reality, and afterwards the thoughts. This reality, I think one can really feel. And the gymnastic lessons in Greek for the young boys, they were naked. So they were able to see the whole body and this picture of muscles and bones and tension and movement. And I think this is this really really great impression we can get through movement, and we can see these tensions and all this, what's going on, and how we can better it, how we can make it better and practice. And it nearly took me 3 years to get this free a little bit, yeah. So daily work. So it was full-time study in Bothmer school, these 3 years. And that's the question for this beauty of the single movement. And through this beauty, through the possibility to see a beauty, so something not analytic, but something like synthetic, a picture, to see the beauty. And then I think there is something like the being in behind, or something like being in, yeah, something like the Greek told to the gods, but that's reality for us. And for our thinking, it was something I discovered in this. I wrote my examens in this time. It was something like the alphabet. So our movements are more or less the same numbers like the alphabet. And so we have A, B, C, and to X and Z. And I thought, oh, in my 3 or 5 year study, I got not more than 5 exercises of these 30. I didn't get really through it a little bit. And I think there's a really huge world behind which we can discover by exercise, by doing the exercises, by feeling the space, by something like tasting the space. But my approach and what I think is for the future really necessary, what comes in different ways to me, is that we can also learn to think what we are doing, that we can think the movement. If we do it in our body, we incarnate, we get to ourselves and we got to the space, to this bigger human. But if we want to get it in a clarity, to get it in the consciousness, and to be able some days to get it in a normal scientific discussion, then I feel the necessity to begin, just to do small steps to begin to be able to think it. Not with our brain like that, with the thoughts, our definitions, but something like to do the gymnastic with our spirit. And this was very interesting for me. One, after this part of not being able to move myself and to look, I got to Jamin Millen, besides Alhidis from Bothmer, one of my teachers, and I had worked a lot on doing the exercise without my body, because I couldn't use my whole body, and I just do it something like internal. For me, the feeling was I do it with the spirit, and it was even harder to do it, and I had to take more energy to do it, just with in this reality of non-corporal. And then I made it for him. I just stand in front of him, he stands in front of me, and I made the movement without moving my body. And he saw it and corrected me. So he saw the movement. And that's one step. We can even work with old people, yeah, who can't, or with people who can't even work with. Maybe one day, even with coma patients, yeah, who even don't have a consciousness here. Maybe one day, yeah, that we can help them come back through their inner forces, yeah. And that's the direction I would like to work on, with different exercises, and mainly with the projective geometry. I made this way of thinking with eternity, yeah, or endlessness. And I think that's a long way to practice the Bothmer gym, to practice the projective geometry. And in the last days, I got this Geheimwissenschaft from Steiner, yeah, lesson of how the cosmic were developing cosmic forces, and how man can work on himself to get to a bigger possibility to think, to be human. And I think there are different necessities to get to this point. And besides that, I am working with the Bothmer books, and there Bothmer clearly says that he just could begin this work. And this has to be proceeded. We have to go on beyond, but not just with I feel very really necessity not just to invent new exercises and just take his heritage, but to do this work of really to get to the truth of the movement, yeah, and to not like define it, and that's all have to do this. That's not the truth, but the reality of this being. So something is just something else. We normally, with our normal consciousness, we can't even think. Yeah, we can't. Maybe we get a little bit of feeling, and maybe you get a little bit of feeling what I mean, what's living in me. But it's really hard to say this in words. Yeah, and I don't know whether I can give you my impressions in the Bothmer school and my search for the last I studied for these 5 years, and then I'm now a 25 years sports teacher at a Waldorf school, at all different Waldorf schools, and I carried on my research with on an anatomic way because this is one direction I think is very necessary. It was my first in the Bothmer school that I discovered that the human body is something like a mixture of movement, which are geronnen, we say in German, which are from the movement, they are something like iced, something like frozen movement, yeah, something like that. And that I discovered, and I discovered 2 or maybe 3 movements where I found which Bothmer exercise something like made a big impression on special anatomic structures. And that was a really interesting research, because it was something like new. I don't have anyone who told me just do it. I did it with plastilene and with Atlantics, with these atlases, anatomic atlases, and this is another part of this work, I think, which has to do.
Yeah. Thank you, Jan. Yeah, there's a lot there, and there's a lot there in the movement, and especially if we've spent time with it, there's more questions than answers often. So thank you very much for sharing where you're at with it at the moment. Jackie.
I won't stay long because I can hear my little boy coming down the stairs.
Yeah, all good.
So Jan, I'm just linking into something you said about the thinking of it, and I was walking through the woods last week or the week before, and I got quite frightened. Something came out, and I felt fearful. It's like an old thing of being a woman, walking my dog on my own in the woods, and I've been working with that. And immediately what came to mind was to do the domes in my head, and I felt really peaceful. I felt really safe, and that was such a wonderful experience that I could just hold on to that without having to hold the fear or squash the fear or how ridiculous I'm being, or the domes just came and presented themselves, and I did it in my head whilst walking, and I felt great. I felt peaceful and safe. But yeah, so our big journey, what I'm doing is with the Calendar of the Soul. I'm really enjoying reading that and trying all the different moves that we've been doing over the 30-day challenge and moving it with that verse for the week. Some don't fit at all, but I'm still practicing it while I'm sort of saying it and living it, moving it. And others have fitted really beautifully. It kind of just flowed very nicely, but that's such a long journey while I reconnect to some of these moves. And I wrote to Martin just to, I wrote to everybody, and Martin wrote back to me and mentioned that he thinks that maybe there might be some other movements that go with the verses, because the verses are a living expression themselves, and maybe that the movements that we have from Bothmer don't actually necessarily fit with it. So it's interesting, Jan, what you were saying about staying with the Bothmer moves and taking them deeper. or not necessarily making new ones or creating new ones, or so I don't know, again, that's another interesting thought to sort of play around with. And another passion for me is space, cleaning space, being outside in nature, and murky spaces, hence the forest, how you can bring lightness. And I love the idea that you can go and bust out some Bothmer memes in some sort of area that works with spirit, space, nature. That's another thing I'm sort of excited by. Something that I've done a lot of reading for in the past. And again, coming back to Bothmer after all this time, going, this could be something that I could use and work with. So that's my questions, my study,
Great. A lot of it taps in together, doesn't it? The calendar of the soul that you were talking about just there, and Jan talking about this alphabet of movement, and how, so each of our Bothmer exercises, the quality of them is within the context of the development of human being and the development of human consciousness. But those same archetypal movements could then, you know, it's a bit like saying, what's the essence of that movement, and is that potentially like an alphabet or like a letter, and then that has that particular quality which can be applied to that kind of gesture in a verse or in a written form, or because even a verse and even speech are attempts to visualize or make expressed the internal activity, the internal movement activity that's happening for a person. Or, you know, somebody is describing a woodland, for example. What they're describing is the woodland, but they're also describing their perception of the woodland, which is an internal activity. So there's these very fine opportunities, which is why I think the movement fits so well with things like verses, or with space, or with internal activity. But it does bring up, I've always had a really strong connection with eurythmy. And so as I'm speaking about that just now, I was like, okay, well, then what's the difference between Bothmer and eurythmy? If you're using Bothmer exercises to move to the calendar, then you could also say that there's eurythmy, and you move eurythmy to the calendar. And what are the different things that would be expressed by the different movements? And for me, something that I didn't mention before, but that lives quite strongly around this movement, is the capacity for the Bothmer movement. Because I trained in Bothmer and eurythmy at the same time when I first started my trainings. And I was moving the eurythmy, and I have a natural affinity for it, and I really enjoy it. And yet I had one weekend on Bothmer, and we did the opening exercise, and I had Martin and Susan as my teachers, and we played loads of games. But we had this one weekend, and we did the opening exercise, and I think we also did, I can't remember now, but one of the walks. And we also did, I think Martin did the upright challenge, you know, where you put your arms up, and then somebody comes and kind of readjusts your rib cage and your posture and brings your shoulders down, and this whole kind of alignment thing. And I went back to my eurythmy course on Monday, and my movement was entirely different. I felt so much more capable of expressing the eurythmy gestures, having had this very grounded posture, not purely mechanical, not like anatomy and like this is the posture that you need, but this quality of levity and gravity and this groundedness in space. And suddenly my eurythmy was like 10 times more expressive, because I was so much more grounded in myself, just as my human self, before attempting to express something that was beyond my human self, or that was in the non-visible. So because I was so much more connected in my physical, in connection to all the others, in terms of the sheaths, physical, etheric, astral, ego. So then for me, that's an element of what this is, and asking those questions. How does Bothmer Movement enable that so well? Because nowadays, if you look to society and mental health and people's feeling that they're not embodied, then this kind of movement is really a benefit for people to feel, oh, I am a human being and I am incarnated, and I do know how I can move in space, and then I'm free to do this, this, and this. Essentially, Jan, what you were saying about thinking, Bothmer, you know, the ability to think of those qualities, levity and gravity, as you move every day, rather than this is what I do for an hour when I'm doing Bothmer. It's those living qualities that I think are really valuable. And for me, that's where the question is like, okay, you can use Bothmer to express certain things, and what is the foundation? What is it actually doing? Like, almost, I'd love to go to a university and wire myself up with an MRI scan and be like, move the Bothmer exercises and find out what's happening in the brain, and like what does that look like, and why is that so beneficial for us? Because spiritually and personally, we feel it, we know it's good for us, and I know it's good for other people that I do it with. That's where Bothmer therapy comes in. But to actually have the understanding behind it, of like putting it together with the kind of up to date scientific thinking, that's definitely an interest as well. And then of course space and nature. And I loved what Helena brought the other week, which was the flower of life. These little this flower of life picture, which is the 6-petaled flower or the 6-pointed star, but mostly she was bringing it in the sense that every atom has these spinning protons and neurons, I think, protons and electrons. I'm not so scientifically minded sometimes. Every has that, and what it creates is these 3 spirals around a central point, and those 3 spirals are also the flower of life when you put it together. And she was describing these little cogs, or these atom cogs in space, that when you're moving, it's like they're moving up your arm. So the space is like pushing your arm up, and it was just another way of thinking about the space moving you. But given that space around us is full of atoms, and we're made of atoms, and everything is made of atoms, then it is this continual communication between the outside and the inside, and the outside and the inside. It's illusion, really, yeah. But that's what it looks like to our eyes. And so we have this sense of the space having a living quality. And so, of course, the movement, as soon as we're conscious and we place our imagination on the space around us, then the space around us also shifts its own energy. It has an invitation to shift to a different energy because we have imagined or thought Bothmer in the process of doing. So that's where, for me, the healing and the movement in nature becomes relevant. Wherever you are, whatever room you're in, or forest. So there is a lot of interest, a lot of different awarenesses that we have. And I think for me, what comes through even more strongly than, let's say, wanting to, with a scientific mind, penetrate an exercise, it's almost this quality of meditation, or a meditative quality of asking a question and not necessarily always knowing exactly what that question is, but having the intention of asking while moving and being open to listen to what comes in. That could be something that we could do, and do that through movement. So let's say if we were to choose one exercise, like domes, for example, and just move that together for 5 minutes or 4 minutes, and have this open, questioning sense within us, and listen to what comes in. So not necessarily have a question that needs to be answered, and not necessarily be asking, what does the domes want to teach me, or what does what's the domes exercise about, but more just simply in the act of moving an exercise that we know well, so we don't have to think physically about the exercise, that we move and maybe just hear what comes in. For me, that would be an interesting way of working in these Wednesday sessions, having less of a, we're going to look at hands, or we're going to look at, like, less of a physically oriented subject, and more of a inquiry, an open inquiry sense in it, something a bit different. I don't know, I've done it maybe a couple of times in different Bothmer intensives, but it could be quite fun to do. And then of course come back together with the things that have come through and discover it. I do a lot of work with energy healing and meditation, and that's how we work in our sessions there. We have a group of people and we spend 5 minutes in silence and just tuning in and asking what wants to be shared in this meeting, and just kind of having that open curiosity to the space around us, or the quantum field, or the energy of all that is, or whatever you want to call it. Asking that question and then being open to what comes, and then using that as an invitation. I think in Theory U with Otto Scharmer, it's called presencing. So being purely in the present moment and allowing the impulse from the future to come to you, rather than asking questions for it. So what I would propose is, it's 8:56, 8:57. We could move for 3 minutes together, and let's say we take the domes with Jackie's memory and picture of how that was helpful in moving internally, and have an open curiosity questioning space. And for me, I would probably be asking with a view to, what can we be focusing on in these Wednesday sessions? What wants to come through in these sessions specifically? We each individually have our own research that we're doing, but when we come together, it creates a new focus, or a new being, you could say. So what does that Wednesday being want to bring? Does that make sense?
I'll do the domes, but I've got Edward upstairs on his own now, so I'm going to go, and I'll see you tomorrow morning for movement. But
cool, awesome.
I'll do
Thanks so much for staying. I really appreciate it. It's really nice to have you here. Cool. Bye. Bye. Awesome. Or it is 8:58. So if anybody has to go, we can maybe do that next time, and have that at the beginning of our session next time, and bring that in for our next session.
I think we could take the who was it, the lady just now, I didn't get the
Jackie.
name. Jackie.
Jackie.
Okay. Yeah, Jackie. And what Jackie made with the dome, maybe we can take it with us, and with the morning lessons as well, with the morning practice with you. That for me, it's good to take a lesson, to take an exercise for 2 or 3 weeks, and to stay in it, not just one day or 20 minutes, but a long time, and to make and to get in it, yeah. And during the day, then we can discover something like the qualities and what we are changing, because. Maybe we begin this next week.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we can do that.
With one question, with one exercise or 2, maybe next.
Yeah, I think there's a number of people that would be quite interested in having a task like having one exercise for a week or 2 weeks, and being with that for that time, and allowing it to breathe through them. In the practice, yeah. Maybe
not the dome, because it's nearly at the end, and I feel now, maybe for Jackie it was good in the forest, but maybe for us, we want now to start a new process.
Yeah,
and not,
yeah.
end something. So maybe you think or we think together for the next days which exercise it could be, which we can discover. And for me, these exercises were developed with the students at school in their development. So maybe we have something, a part of ourselves, which we wanted to develop, which is the double 8 today. Pretty hard for me, yeah. And it's good if I feel something which is not familiar, which is hard. Then I think, okay, there I can go in and practice something, a new quality, because I couldn't. It's something which I'm not familiar with. To get it something like in my family, yeah, to get to being more familiar with this exercise, it could be one way to get this development, to get this process for my life or for your. Yeah, that's the question. But I think you don't have to get the answer now. And
yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Horst? Are there any thoughts or inspirations?
It's clear that you can speak about and you do it in the next step. And you speak and you think, and always it's a process, and I can see so much movement, so the outside, the inside. For me, it's very complicated, but it's lively, full of life, living. Very thankful.
Yeah, thank you for being here. It's really, really lovely. Awesome. Well, let's allow that to live within us until next week, and with questions or movement and inspirations that come in, and then we'll come back together next week and see where this goes then.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much. Lots of love and have a lovely day.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.